Colin Quinn is here. He is a stand-up comedian. He's an actor. He's a writer. He is best known for his former role as the Weekend Update anchor on Saturday Night Live. He is now starring in his fifth one-man show, The New York Story, at the Cherry Theater. It addresses two of his favorite topics, New York and race. It is based on this new book, The Coloring Book, A Comedian Solves Race Relations in America. Chris Rock says that after reading it, you realize Colin Quinn is the white Richard Pryor. It does not get any better than that. I'm pleased to have Colin Quinn at this table for the first time. Welcome.
Thanks, Charlie.
It doesn't get better than that, does it?
No, it doesn't.
The white Richard Pryor.
The white Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor is the ultimate.
I talk to comedians all the time about the idea of not so much about how to be funny, but just the sense of the history of comedy, and they all pay a certain special regard and homage to Pryor.
Pryor and Carlin were like the two things when I was growing up.
George Carlin.
Yeah.
Pryor because what?
Pryor because he was so humane. Like I used to always say, Pryor could do like a KKK guy, and he would still make him, when he was doing the character, he would make him a human being. Yeah. Like he just, everybody had humanity in his, when he would be doing characters, And Carlin, just because he has, he was so precise. He was so trying to figure out the, how the language was affecting the world.
Was he anyway kind of in an ancestral line that included Lenny Bruce?
Oh, both of them were, yeah. Both. I mean, I feel like Lenny Bruce allowed them to become who they became, Yeah. Because without him.
And who did you set out to become other than yourself?
Those guys were my earliest influences. Definitely Pryor and Carlin were the big. Me and Chris Rock. Speaking of Chris Rock, we started
together.
Yeah, we started together, and we both used to write our little notes. But those are the two references to us.
Were you at SNL at the same time?
No. This is when we started comedy in the '80s.
Oh, I see.
This is just when we were open mic guys, and
what's amazing me about it, I did a 60 Minutes piece about Larry David.
Right.
Who sort of, was never quite what he wanted to be.
Right.
As a stand-up.
Yeah, I knew him as a stand-up.
And he would go evidently to clubs and walk off.
Yes, he would walk off.
He'd start and then say, I'm not doing this.
Yeah. Well, his litmus test sometimes for the audience was he'd go, may I use the to form with you people? Because I feel comfortable enough to use the to form with you people rather than the vous form. And if they didn't laugh, that's it.
Yeah. And so how did you evolve into doing these one-man shows?
Well, because stand-up's great, but, the clubs are very...
Yeah.
The fact that people have to keep ordering drinks, it changes the dynamic. So, and the tables
in order to support the comedy.
But yeah, but the tables are you're facing each other. Here's the stage.
Yeah.
So you're facing over here. So there's a whole different physical dynamic that's telling you, pay attention to the comedian, but also pay attention to food and drinks and each other. And, sometimes it can be a bit much. The early shows can be the best thing, and a great comedy club night is the best vibe in the world. But when it's... and once I get rid of smoking, the whole illusion that we all had of that smoke-filled room was gone anyway.
But nevertheless, people who go on to other things still look to stand-up as something very, very special. And often want to go back to it. Seinfeld being my best example.
Yeah, they all go back to it. Everybody goes back to it now. Everybody that left goes back, with very few exceptions. But
just to refurbish, to replenish their own sense of the cutting edge of it?
But because I feel like you can't gain more knowledge. Like the problem with, let's say, movies, right? See these guys writing movies and they're sort of living in the echo chamber, and then they keep writing it and they go, what happened to the movie? What happened? What happened was you're not in touch. We're not in touch at a certain level. But when you go back at a comedy club, the crowd, you can't make them laugh. They're looking at you. They're not going to laugh, so you better get in touch. Yeah. So it's like the audience is such a part of the process in a way that you need. No comedian has ever figured out how to sit down, write their whole act, and go perform it and get laughs. You need the crowd for feedback the whole time.
And the only way you can do that is just through hard knocks.
Yeah, it's through going out there. But it's a great... It gives you some humility, too, because you're like, oh, I'm not a genius. I got to go and work this out. And the crowd's right a lot of times. But they're not right every time.
The crowd is always right?
No, I said they're not.
They're never.
They're right 50% of the time.
50% of the time.
I give them 50.
To be wrong is what? Something is funny and they don't get it?
Sometimes it's funny and it's just, you're not phrasing it right, or they just, they're distracted by some other nonsense going on. I mean, every comedian will tell you the stories of being in the middle of a great set and you're getting the whole crowd's laughing, and then suddenly you hear happy birthday, and some other table has a lit birthday cake, and they're singing "Happy Birthday" in the middle of the showroom, right next to you.
Makes it hard.
Yeah, and then you turn on them, then the crowd's like, "Hey, well, you turn on them, it's a birthday."
But does it have the same popularity that it had in its heyday?
Comedy?
Stand up.
More so nowadays.
More so.
Yeah.
Because of clubs, because of
it's the golden age
online.
It's the golden age of stand-up in many ways.
Is it really?
Yeah. And I use that expression knowing everyone's going to throw up by me saying the golden age of stand-up, but it is. I mean, it's so popular as far as the away. Like,
but where is it happening?
Online. A lot of it's online.
Yeah.
A lot of it's online. A lot of it's clubs. They got alternative scene. They got regular comedy. They got all kinds of different scenes. You know what I mean?
Do you find out what you're good at by saying, "Look, I'm really good in stand-up, but not sketch comedy," or "I can do sketch comedy, but I'm not very good at stand-up"? I mean, is there a different gene there?
Yeah, I think it's a little different. I think stand-up is a certain type of. It's not an actor like sketch is more character, more. Like you're talking to each other sometimes, where stand-up you're talking to the live crowd.
And what about what you do now?
Yeah, that's stand-up.
That's really stand-up.
It's stand-up.
In front of a crowd, walking around talking.
Yeah, it's definitely stand-up, because I can go do it. It's not just in one theater. I can do it. Sometimes there'll be no set. Sometimes I won't have a body mic. I'll just have a regular mic wherever I go on the road, and I can do it still. So it's technically stand-up.
What is it that people who have not done it don't get about doing it? In other words, I'm really interested. A lot of people think that they can do things. Oh,
right.
I could do that if I had good writers. I could do that if I really worked hard to create jokes. I'm a funny guy. But they're not.
Right.
What is it that those that succeed have? Is it timing? Is it something else?
I feel like there's a few things, but one of the main things is you have to have the humility to know you're not a genius and you're going to bomb in front of that crowd.
Really?
You can't be somebody who just because it's really tests your ego, that part of you that's like, the first time I got up I was like, this is going to be great, and then you bomb and you keep bombing, and even to this day I'll go up with something I swear is great and I'll say it and it just bombs, and you have to be like a writer, a rewriter.
Yeah.
So you have to go up and go, oh, and then listen,
almost like an editor,
right? And the crowd helps you edit.
But the idea is to write an hour of comedy. You must have 3 hours of comedy to whittle down, don't you? Sure.
But it's really an interesting. I'll give you an example of a perfect example of a joke that I never thought. I used to do this joke, and when I say used to, means I still have it around.
Yeah.
But it's about how my friend doesn't get sarcasm. So we come out of the gym. I go, I'm ready to fight Mike Tyson. He goes, yeah, right. He'll kick your ass, And so that never got the laugh. Yeah. And I was like, why would that not get a laugh? When I'm saying he doesn't get sarcasm, and I'm doing the example of people that don't get sarcasm.
Right.
But then I started adding, yes, obviously I know that, I started adding myself. And I realized, like, to the audience, you still need the catharsis. You have to represent them. So they're dealing with somebody that doesn't get sarcasm. So people want to hear, what do you say back?
Yeah.
Too. So it's like, that's the thing. After 20 years in the biz, I didn't even know that until I was doing it. And then it started working. Yeah. So you always find little fun things about humanity.
How long did it take you to get it? In other words, get it so that you knew you could write stuff that an audience would like. Was it a year? Was it 5 years? Was it
10 years?
10 years.
For me, it was 10 years. Yeah, some people differs, but I would say 10 years before I could consistently write where I had a higher percentage than. Yeah.
And is the writing more important than sort of the delivery? Significant.
I think it's really important, but there's a lot of great writers there's a lot of great comics that nobody ever heard of that don't have a delivery.
Timing and
well,
delivery.
They don't have that, whatever it is.
Presence, that
they're
X
almost
thing.
like they did the hard part. They wrote. They're great joke tellers, but they're keeping a wall up in some way when they perform. They did the hardest part, writing and going in front of a crowd, but somehow they keep up just a little bit of a wall instead of opening up, and then you see some people.
Vulnerability is part of it too.
What's that now?
Vulnerability.
Yes, vulnerability, and just the understanding, like there's no point to trying to hide now.
Yeah, there's nothing between the two of us.
Yeah,
you're watching me deliver comedy. You're testing me.
Right.
You're saying to me, laugh at what I say. I'm funny.
Exactly.
And we're gonna find out together.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's part of the thing, and the possibility of bombing, which I never even thought that was part of it. until one time I was talking to Lorne Michaels when I was on SNL, and I go, yeah, but and he goes, that's part of the whole thing, though. He goes,
bombing.
The risk that you might bomb is what keeps people laughing. And I was like, that's a good point. Like, I never even thought that's part of the energy of the room. Yeah. Is I'm saying I'm funny.
And they don't give up on you if you bomb.
No, I think the worst thing an audience could be is if they feel sorry for you. They can hate you and you can get them back. But if they feel sorry for you, then you're dead. Yeah.
It's almost like ridicule, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just like, they're disgusted by the weakness because they feel it.
Why did you turn to this kind of thing?
Well, I mean...
Is it storytelling would be my question.
Some of it's storytelling. Some of it's stand-up. I mean, I couldn't even write this until I started doing it as stand-up because I was like so spoiled from being a stand-up that I'm used to reactions.
But now it's a one-man show.
Right. But I'm saying even one-man show. Until I perform, I couldn't write the book because I'm so used to... I'm just spoiled that I'm used to getting reactions to what I say. So when you're writing a book... You're writing chapters, and it's like, that was good. That was, and you're like, I want to hear this every night from different people.
So you can tell me about this homage to New York.
Well, I'm obsessed with old New York, like a lot of people moving on. And, since I grew up here. And, obviously it was a hellhole, but there was something in the personalities that I miss. You know what I mean?
Something that's no longer here.
Looking through rose-colored glass, of course. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
What is that?
It's, well, I mean, I feel
this is what you say in the act.
Right. It's what I say in the act. And it's just I feel like people are very, like this was supposed to be the open city for people to be authentically, like to be able to speak. Like now I feel like we're creating a society of like rehearsed kind of platitudes and, just people speaking in these general kind of, like which is, and I say in the show, it's fine for the West Coast. That's how they should be. But New York wasn't supposed to be the polite, like down south, they always say people are polite. Right. Like New York wasn't supposed to be that. But now we're becoming, there's an internet line, and people just speak in this overall terminology of like positivity. And New York wasn't supposed to be a place for positivity.
It was not.
Yeah. That was California. That was the old joke, It
was a New York attitude.
Yeah, the New York attitude. So that's what I discuss in the book, how it came about to be the New York personality from the earliest days of the Lenape Indians and the Dutch.
What would you like to do that you're not doing? What part of all this?
I'd like to get very rich. I mean, I feel like years ago, I remember saying to myself, I hope I'm never more, because a girl I worked with at MTV had to get a job in a store while she was on MTV. Yeah, right. And I was like, I hope I'm never more famous than I am rich. And I cursed myself. My whole life, I've been more famous than I am rich.
Yeah. Well, how do we turn that around?
It's it's your destiny. It was meant to be.
Do you go out and watch other comedians?
Sure. I watch them on YouTube now. You learn from every comedian. Yeah. I mean, these comedians. First of all, you learn you better keep writing because these guys aren't playing games. All the new guys coming in, like they're. It's so funny. Like you think jokes. At this point, there's so many comedians. You're like, it all has to be said. Every observation. There's new stuff all the time. You're like, oh my God, nobody ever thought of that. It's really great, and it's not just about technology or whatever changes. It's really about human nature.
Tell me about Trainwreck.
Trainwreck?
Your character in doing the movie.
Amy wrote this movie, autobiographical movie. Her and Judd had heard her on Howard Stern, so he said, you should write a movie. She wrote this movie about her life, a very personal movie. And then she had one part was her father, who has MS, and was a wild man, got MS, and now he's in a wheelchair. He's been in a wheelchair since he's 42, whatever. He's 62, 63. So then she goes to me, can you go to a reading and read my father's part for the reading? I was like, sure, I read it at the father's part, but I don't want to play a father, you know what I mean?
Yes, I know.
So then
yes, I do.
I go, so I do the reading, then I know I'm in trouble because her and her sister were like almost, I hear like a little sad gasp. I was like, damn it. I'm not an actor. And I've studied like on and off, but I'm not like an actor. And then, so she goes, I want you to read for the part. I was like, I was good at the reading. I'm not an actor. You don't get somebody else. She goes, why? You don't think you're old enough to play my father? Yes, you are. I was like, no.
That's the way she would say it?
Yeah, she said it right to your face.
Right.
No, she's got a will. The great thing about Amy is she's not only hilarious, but she's willful. She's like this, just looking at you. And she's like, she goes, I want you to come play. I want you to at least come to the, the screen test.
Yeah, right.
They still have screen tests.
Oh, really? Yeah.
You believe it? It's like 1930. And
yes.
So I go to Judd at the screen test. So I'm trying to tell Judd because I heard Judd thought, Colin, because he knew we could. He might not be Judd Apatow. Yeah,
right.
He thinks I'm too young for the part too. So he goes. So I'm trying to tell him without her hearing, like, hey Judd, I get it. I'm too young, for this part. But all he hears is like one of those movie things. He thinks I'm trying to say, you think I'm too young for the part, but I really want. He goes, no, I think you could do it. I go, no, that's not what I'm saying. But Amy's right there.
See, this is a great routine.
Yeah,
right there.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell him one thing. He's hearing the other thing.
Oh, yeah.
He thinks I'm trying to lobby. So I go and do the reading. But when you don't care about something, you're great.
Oh, you are.
It emanates.
Yeah.
If I had been wanting it, I wouldn't have. But then once I got
it, too hungry, too whatever.
Yeah, it would have been
if you
something.
don't want it, all the restraints are just
all the
float
restraints
away.
in you.
They float away.
But then when I met her father, I was like, oh, and I mean, now I'm so happy I played it because.
Well, when you met her father, you were, what does that mean? You just
I met him a
loved
couple
him
of. He's a guy that like was a wild guy, like just a real. And you can tell even in the place he's at, he's stuck in this like basically an old age home. He's the youngest one there by 30 years, but he's got MS. But he's just, you could tell he's like charms like all the nurses. Just his energy is like a real.
So you can see
guy.
where she came from.
Yeah. And he's a real. He's like realistic, like he's brutally honest.
The Coloring Book is the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.